Hey everyone, welcome to Unclouded. This is a thing we're doing where we navigate the frontiers of data, AI, Web3, and the journey away from the confines of the centralized cloud. I'm Carson. Every week we kind of explore different frontiers of Web3 and data and AI and pretty much whatever else I feel like talking about. Um, you can connect with our community, Unclouded, via our Telegram channel. You can follow and engage with us on Twitter. And I hope you do. We've got a lot of more of these coming, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Today, I'm super stoked to have a longtime friend and Web3 pioneer, I would say, John Schwartz. He's joining us. We actually go we go way back, way before Glyph, which he's going to talk about, and Tableland, and even the whole DeFi boom. So for those who might not know, John is the co-founder and CEO of Glyph, which is pretty much the first DeFi protocol native to Filecoin, if I'm not mistaken. And so I think he arrived on the scene, you might say, around the same time as me, about 2017, and you worked at Consensus, right? And then kind of dove into the Filecoin ecosystem at that point. Worked pretty closely with Protocol Labs and Filecoin Foundation, and I've actually heard a lot of really great stories from before, during, and after Filecoin mainnet launch, which we won't talk about here today. But you and your team for sure played a huge role in developing a lot of like early essential infrastructure for Filecoin, like the first wallet and Block Explorer and stuff like that. Anyway, fast forward 2019. All this stuff that they've been working on turned into basically what is now Glyph. And so I'm going to let John kind of like do a better job of introducing himself now. He can fix anything I might have gotten wrong there. And then we will dive into the very serious business of meme coins and token valuations. So
Yeah, hey, thanks for having me on, Carson. This is a pleasure. And yeah, I feel like we've had these conversations and just walking around wherever it is, finally about time we get it recorded and so people can hear us mumbling
totally.
and talking nonsense probably. But
Yeah.
your intro is pretty much spot on. Yeah, Glyph is basically Filecoin's first and biggest DeFi protocol. It's evolved throughout the 6 years that we've been working on it. And if you're a Filecoin token holder, which you may be listening to this call, or a Filecoin storage provider, Glyph could hopefully help you. For token holders, it's a way to earn rewards on your Filecoin by essentially lending it to the storage providers of the network who use it to store more data and grow. So if you're interested, you can go to glyph.io, GLIF.io, and you can read more. But I'm excited to jam on meme coin economies, tokens, valuations. I mean, yeah, we've had a
Awesome.
lot of discussions about this, so let's jump in.
Yeah, cool. I mean, so it's been a pretty crazy week in the crypto world. We've got the first crypto president, I guess, in the US, launching his own meme coin, which is bonkers. I mean, just today we had McAfee resurrected apparently from the dead, launching an official meme coin on his old Twitter account. Like, it's like reaching a sort of fever pitch right now. Um, and I was joking with John a while back that I was like, well, hey, there's this all going on. I should get in here. And I'm pretty sure I lost like all of my funds within like 20 minutes. It's just crazy how
It's
fast it
crazy in
moves.
the trenches, man. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just not a trench warrior. I'll do the long game.
I no, I think you are. Yeah. I think you are. It's about what trenches you're in.
Yeah,
It
well, that's the
might
thing.
might have been the wrong trench.
It was definitely the wrong trench. Actually, it was pretty crazy. On one of them, I watched sort of number go up, and I was like, "Well, this is fun." And then, boof, and it just went bright red, long, long candlestick. And I was like, "Well, what does that mean?" And then I realized that that meant all of my money was gone. So,
You got yeah. Well,
yeah,
I think there is something to be said about having gone through a rug pull is sort of a rite of
rite
being
of
in crypto.
passage.
Like you
Yeah.
have to have yeah, right, exactly, rite of passage. That's the word I was looking for. Exactly. So we've all been there.
Okay, cool. All right. So, these meme coins are happening. Let's dive into them a little bit. Obviously, they're sort of taking off. Do you see any parallels between the sort of like exciting speculative nature of meme coins and maybe like broader, longer term trends in the cryptocurrency market writ large? Like, is this a tiny microcosm of basically what we've actually been doing for the past couple years, or is this something new? What's your take there?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think like, so to me, e- almost everything in crypto has an element of meme coin in it, right? So if we talk about memes, I think a lot of it is based on speculation, right? Like uh, the meme coin economy is 100% speculation. When you look at even some of the most, uh, I would say, enshrined or sort of fundamentally good crypto assets, there is still a lot of speculation involved in that, right? And so I think that there's a lot of similarities just in that at that surface level, right? Like everything is riding on speculation, and there's reasons for that, which I think we'll probably dive into. So I'll spare the long rant now, but I think the thing that's important to kind of uncover is what are we actually speculating on, right? So if
Right.
you look at a token like Uni, for instance, there's a lot of speculation on like, will the fee switch get turned on? And so there's this idea of like, well, this token has value because if people decide to turn this fee switch on, now token holders can get paid. Whereas like speculating on Fartcoin, um, the speculation there, and I'm not an expert. So for any of the Fartcoin community that I misrepresent here, I'm sorry in advance. But like my understanding of the speculation there is like, I'm speculating that someone will come by after me at a higher price and I'll have an opportunity to get out. Right. So that we're both speculating, but one is a little bit more speculating on fundamentals, right? Like the other is speculating on more of perpetuating of speculation. So yeah, I think there's similarities and differences within that.
I mean, you've described on Twitter, the meme coins as sort of like the most intellectually honest crypto asset. Uh, I mean, obviously as a hot take, but that's sort of like where we're just like, yeah, we're speculating because we're speculating, and that's why it's fun and that's why it's exciting. But yeah, it's pretty.
Totally.
It's the more honest version of speculation, perhaps.
It kind of is. I mean, like I pick Uniswap. You can pick others. There's a small percentage of, I would say, DeFi or token projects that have enough fundamentals within their protocol that you can actually speculate on a fundamental part of that protocol becoming valuable in the context of this token. But there's the whole like middle curve of projects that don't have that kind of traction or revenue or sort of sustainability in their ecosystem. And those projects that launch a token and call it governance, or that to me is like the area of speculation that's the most dangerous, because it's veiled as this is a legitimate project when it's the token is not really doing anything legitimate at all. And so in that light, I do actually think meme coins are a little bit more intellectually honest. Like we are not trying to tell anyone that this does anything. It's as like, yeah. So the writing's on the wall there, where if you're investing in some sort of project that says, we're going to be building this in the future and all this like future hope and things that are like n- not have not been proven out, it's it maybe is a little bit more risky in some ways, because you could be fooled. In meme coins, you could lose, but you hopefully weren't fooled.
Right.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's
Okay. Cool.
at
Well,
least
let's dive
yeah.
into that a little bit. Actually, this sort of idea of valuations and things. So maybe to start with, like, what are the top reasons for a project even to launch a token in the first place? Would you say we could go with like the top three reasons why projects right now are launching a token?
And are you asking like the real reason or the stated reason?
Let's start with the stated reason. Yeah, because
Okay.
there's
Okay.
I think there's kind of only one real reason, but multiple stated reasons.
Yeah, and I think there are real reasons. So I am a proponent of launching of experimenting and launching with tokens. I think the stated reason for a lot of projects uh, is, and I'm really much more familiar with DeFi. So like outside of DeFi, I think you can probably get into different paradigms that I'm less familiar with. So like specifically about DeFi, the stated reason is generally about governance. Um, this token will allow folks to weigh in and sort of democratize decision making. Um, and that is a stated reason because historically, at least in the US, the regulation has really made it tough to experiment with things that are in any sort of vicinity of distributing profit, cash flow sharing, burning tokens to, create, uh, sort of supply short markets to make the number go up. So like generally democratizing decision making has been the the least risk on or the most risk off strategy, at least for these DeFi protocols, to take. In addition to the fact that when they do it now, if a regulator comes, especially from the US, and says, "Hey, are you going to pass or fail the Howey test?" Right, which is this test that determines if a token is a security or not. Um, the project team has launched a token that is explicitly for democratizing decision making, and within the Howey test, there's some aspect of it which is, are you expecting to profit on the efforts of sort of like a single person or organization?
Right.
Where the argument with democratizing decision making is, hey, there was no single decision maker here, but that's why, like in reality, it doesn't always kind of pan out that way. Like the founding teams have a pretty big stake. Investors on the team can sway votes pretty substantially. So a lot of that sort of democratizing of decision making through a token is, I would say, more theatrical in nature than it is legitimate. But again, not for all projects. They're like the top projects. I think are actually, they are closer to having the stated reason be the real reason, and that sort of aligning on governance.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I mean, I think that makes sense, right? There's, and we've been sort of in this very strange regulatory framework. Well, we haven't had a regulatory framework, so for quite a while. So a lot of teams have been speculating on just like, if I look like a security, am I going to get into trouble? And it's usually not until they actually see some sort of like success that they even get noticed. And then this week it's basically that all just went out the window. But there's still a lot of teams that are sort of trying to toe the line of like being careful and building a sustainable like token design and model. Okay, so we've got a couple of different reasons to launch a token, and then recently you were kind of you tweeted a little bit about valuations, and you mentioned it a second ago, and you talked about sort of the idea that there are some projects where you want to evaluate them based on their fundamentals. You used Uniswap as an example of like there's this switch and we're speculating on whether it's going to go on or off. Then we've got sort of like valuation and speculation in terms of like, is the number going to keep going up as people come in after me? And so I could ask, like, how do meme coins influence this broader sort of conversation about valuation in crypto? Do you think that that's sort of perpetuating like speculative valuations? I mean, it probably is. I think the answer is yes. But when investors are kind of coming in, do you think this is going to basically be a huge bubble and everybody's going to go like, oh crap, we got to get back down to fundamentals? What do you think we're seeing here in terms of that?
Yeah, really good question. A lot to unpack there, I think. I mean, so one, yes, I think the speculative cash flows that are going into these assets are bubbly in nature. You obviously have to look at like each asset on its own, but the asset class as a whole, I think, does have a lot of bubbly sort of symptoms, I would say. And the way that I think you could arrive at that assumption is to, and that, I think this is the tweet thread that you were referring to is like, generally when I think about valuations, there's like two high level approaches you could take. You could take like a top down approach, or a bottom up approach. So let's start with bottom up, because I think it's like really sound, and kind of like easy to work with. Now, so let's just take any revenue generating company, right? Um, let's say it earns some profit every month or year. Um, as an investor or a valuation person, you would look at those cash flows and you would kind of say, well, how long do we expect those to last for? And then we discount them back to the present, and we say, well, what's the current value of all those future cash flows? And then you do still speculate a little bit, right? So you say, well, what might be the growth rate of those cash flows, or you know, there's other sorts of variables that can go into that sort of discounted cash flow analysis, that give you some sort of present valuation. But generally, it's easier to spot bubbles when you go bottom up, because when you start to make those assumptions, you you basically are like, huh, like, is it really realistic that I can double or like 10x my growth every year for the next 40? Because like that's the only way I can get to this valuation here. And then you're like, so I have to then like come up with a new line of business. I have to do something like something big has to happen that is outside the like fair sort of assumption that this could happen to this business, right? Like, so you can kind of smell out the bubbly things in nature when you use these real fundamentals. Now, the problem is, because of how the regulatory environment has sort of panned out, as a founder or a builder that launches one of these tokens, if you want any sort of, or historically speaking, if you want to maximize your chances of being safe and not being labeled a security, which would cost you a lot of money to register as a security in the US, and also um, you have to abide by tons of rules, and it's not an easy process. You also rule out a lot of your potential users that way. Um, you essentially can't pay revenue to token holders, and so the industry can't value these crypto assets in a way that would allow us to understand what they're actually worth. And that becomes the problem, right? So regulation actually is the issue that keeps us from creating sane valuation tactics. So in an odd way, the regulators have actually kept the industry in this bubbly environment, right? And so if you can't distribute cash flows and everything's a speculative sort of asset anyways, then you naturally revert to this top down valuation model where somehow there's some relative comparisons in the market that we can use to value our own thing or some other thing, right? So we now have the valuation of Uniswap. We have the valuation of Sushi Swap and different dexes or different liquid staking protocols or protocols that look like Glyph. So when we talk about those things in terms of like valuations and what they're worth in the market, we make these relative comparisons, right? So we say, like Lido has this much TVL and it's doing this much in X, and this traction stat Y, and so we can kind of compare ourselves in that way. But like that kind of just completely negates the idea of, hey, or ignores the fact that, hey, maybe like the valuations that we're tying our sales to or like anchoring our own price in, those could be off.
Right.
And so that is where things perpetuate. And this has been a rant on this question, but I'll leave it with this last thing. And I'm kind of going back and forth on this in my head. You have like you have this issue now with pro crypto people who have the ability to create regulation. It's going to be a very backwards relationship, because the person who creates pro crypto regulation will inevitably create the ability to accurately value some of these crypto assets. In doing that, that will really help the industry move along further, because we now have like a way to value risk and reward. We can like really look at the fundamentals of a thing and decide what it's worth. Now, in doing that, we may pop a bubble.
Right.
So what a very crypto friendly or pro crypto regulator might end up doing is actually like taking a ton of market cap away from the industry in the short term and look like a villain, right? Whereas like someone who is not creating regulation, creating tons of confusion, you don't know what's going to happen next. That's a casino. So
Right.
now you're perpetuating this speculation environment, and it will just take longer for those bubbles to pop, or they'll pop. It just becomes very dangerous. So yeah, it's kind of this like backwards conundrum of like the crypto friendly people may hurt crypto or cause the next winner.
Right. At least hurt crypto in the short term, I guess.
Totally. Yeah.
Hopefully, if we can see past that and recover, then
Yeah.
longer term sustainability ensues. And like, hey, there's going to be a ton of projects who are like, ah, shoot, we've been found out. We have no like real intrinsic value, and that they'll fold. And it's you
Yeah.
see this in in other sort of. I mean, it reminds me a little of like sort of early internet businesses and things where new regulation came in, and we had a bubble pop, and we had a lot of businesses go under, and some rose to the top, and now it's the primary marketplace for commerce. So hopefully we'll get there.
100%. Some will survive, and the ones that have really good fundamentals will excel in that environment,
Right.
right? And I think that's kind of the landscape that we want. Of course, I personally don't root for anyone to die out or anything like that. But like, if you are riding on the back of a wave of speculation and you're happy without creating real fundamental value and real traction in a business, it is a ticking time bomb. Like you can't like it may be past your lifetime. Like who knows how long these things can go, hidden for. But it's I would like to see fundamentals beat, like a project that has better fundamentals than another project should be worth more in my mind than one that just has better marketing.
Right. Yeah, that's the ideal world, and it's rarely the case in reality, but let's hope for the best.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so what do you think about like we've actually seen there's a lot of teams. I talk to like founding teams all the time who are like, oh yeah, we want to launch, but we're like waiting because we're talking to our lawyers and we're trying to figure because we want to do this right. So there's like a bunch of teams that have probably put off launching a token in order to make sure that they get like they're playing by the sort of like very fuzzy regulatory rules. They've put a lot of effort in. It's cost them thousands in lawyer fees. They've put a lot of work into their tokenomics. They've put things off. They're about ready to launch. Um, if some pro crypto regulation comes in, are those teams, the ones that have put in the effort, like are they going to suffer because they were sort of like designing for a past regulatory regime, or do you think the work they put in is likely to pan out because like a lot of that like again, I don't want to overuse the term speculation, but like a lot of people were speculating on how to behave in a regulatory sense.
It's all part of the same game,
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So
That's a great question. Um, you know, I don't know. I think in my head, where everyone's playing a game, like to me, it's all a game. And essentially, the regulators set the rules of the game, and hopefully, people obey the rules of the game. And just to be clear, like you know, we're talking a lot about U.S. regulation. I think it's important just to note, like,
yeah, good point.
U.S. regulation is not the only regulation that matters. I think it's appropriate to use U.S. regulation as an anchor, because generally, from what I've heard with other teams, is if you follow the U.S., you're generally going to be okay elsewhere. So, like that's why we're talking about the U.S. But hey, like a lot of teams that I think their strategy is we can't operate in the U.S.
Right.
too dangerous, too we don't understand, and they just operate everywhere else, right?
Yeah.
So I think that is um, something to just note here. But um, when you are playing a game and you don't know the rules, and you make some decisions, essentially that is taking on risk. You and then someone defines rules which you may be obeying or you may not be obeying. Um, there's a very very rich element of luck there, right? And so the teams that have been preparing, depending on how they've been preparing, they may benefit or they may not based on luck. Like no one can tell you right now what the regulation will look like. I mean, there people can take, again, speculation. They can make very accurate guesses, but especially with Trump in general, I think is historically hard to predict. And so I think like luck of the draw.
Yeah.
If the rules of the game are stated and you're not following them, it's not going to be great for you.
No.
And if you are and you got lucky, then hey, you just got a huge head start. And for projects that have waited and not launched, they now have an opportunity to play the game according to the rules and set themselves up in a way where they can, with more confidence, they can take bets and understand the game that they're playing. So I think ultimately, regulation helps the would be folks, and the previous folks, you either got lucky or you didn't in some way.
Right. Okay. I mean, I think that's, yeah, that it's all speculation at the end of the day, even
Yeah.
in terms of speculating on what to speculate. Um,
Oh, totally. Yeah.
okay. I got one more sort of meme coiny kind of question, I think, and then, um, I think we'll be about halfway, and it'll be an opportunity to talk a little bit about Glyph and what you're doing with Glyph as well.
Yeah.
Because we've talked about I've talked with you about Glyph before, but I think you've actually got some pretty like unique perspectives on how to build a company around a product and find product market fit, and arguably Glyph has done exactly that. So we should delve into that. But before we get there, so I'm interested with this sort of like meme coin boom and crypto market things going on. Do you think that there's any potential for influence on more traditional financial like systems and economic models? Like, because in theory, right, DeFi is about like experimenting with economic models, rapid experimentation, arguably, to see what works and what doesn't work, and like, explore entirely new asset classes. This is the sort of been the promise of DeFi. And I'm wondering if you see it, and maybe you can just say like, I don't know, I'm not a Wall Street guy, but I'm wondering if you see any of that experimentation actually like feeding back into the broader economic system.
That is such a good question. Yeah, I don't know. I think in general, we can see, like, I think where I look for inspiration to the answer for this question would be actually like how news has changed with the internet. So, like, you have essentially um, prior to the internet, you have like New York Times or these major sort of publications, and they generally dominate the narrative, right? And in some ways, because they are the gatekeeper of news, they're they're actually able to produce, in some ways, they're able to produce news that is less like market driven. Let me explain that in more detail. In the sense that when the internet came out, um, and new platforms began to produce information that looks like news, even if those, like, if there's social medias and they're not news publications, there's all sorts of like laws and regulations within that I'm not sort of very knowledgeable on. But I read, I used to do like content marketing back a long time ago, and generally, when you look at the virality of media or content online, or any content really for that matter, the content that is both the most attention grabbing, the most attention like retaining, the most
Hmm.
re-
Yeah.
yeah, that was a weird phrase.
We know
um
what you mean. Yeah.
yeah, is the
Get
most
it? They hold on to
the
it.
yeah, right, like keeps your attention, is the most emotionally dramatic. So
Right.
either extremely happy, extremely sad, really angry, really, and we feel this as a society. I think like I go back to maybe like early 2000s, but it seemed like life was more calm. Maybe I was just younger, right? But like I think we're in an age now where um, the popular content that rises to the surface and gets shared is naturally the one that creates the most emotional sort of like within us, right? So then, and the reason that I bring this up is now we should look what happened to traditional news outlets when we've had this new kind of like news source that can break this thing. Well, like one, with the internet, we have much more dramatic content that is the one that's getting read. So much more attention grabbing than what you would see at that time, like early on in, say, the New York Times or Boston Globe or something like that. Um, then second, you have like the speed of news travels so fast that the New York Times can no longer just do a newspaper a day, right? So the models have completely changed now, and now even to compete with with these sort of social media giants, the news sources have to create highly emotionally charged content, right? Or else their stuff's not going to get read, and they need to be faster, but their teams are smaller. And so that becomes a lot harder. And to produce like the same amount of content that is being produced on, say, Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, whatever, you jeopardize quality, I think, in a lot of ways. So here we've seen a parallel kind of thing in my mind. Maybe not. Maybe like this is the wrong analogy to draw, but I see meme coins and Wall Street, or DeFi and meme coins and Wall Street, as a very similar sort of thing. And actually, like DeFi from much more for me, obviously, than meme coins. Like DeFi, I completely agree with you. A lot of this has to do with experimentation and like to spin up new forms of money and different types of vehicles for you know doing certain types of investing is so cheap and easy. The other thing is the transparency of data and information becomes um, just enormously more efficient and clear and accurate. That aspect of DeFi, the transparency of information, is to me it must basically turn that back into Wall Street, right? Like if I have an on-chain ETF or index fund and I can see all of the trades that are happening, all the money in and out, I know all the positions because I can look it up myself.
Right.
Um, if I then I go and look at, say, Fidelity and I can't see any of that,
Yeah. Until
where
you
am I
get
going
the
to go?
quarterly reports. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to me, it's really similar to that news, and I don't think we know all the ways that it will positively and negatively impact things. Right. Like, yes, it's true. Today, we receive a ton of benefits from the faster and sort of more democratic proliferation of news. But we also see a ton of downsides. We get a lot of misinformation. We get a ton of fighting between big media players, and as they sort of lose their power. Um, and I think we'll have both a similar yin and yang when it comes to Wall Street as well.
Yeah. Interesting. I mean, yeah, if you think about markets from the perspective of like the efficient information aggregation systems, right, which is like arguably basically what they are, uh, then clearly like DeFi is a great idea because like information asymmetries just kind of go away, right? So we actually
Totally.
have arguably what is like closer to a true market than what we have now in traditional like Wall Street frameworks where we've got.
Yeah.
I mean, well, until fairly recently, we literally had a bunch of people in the same room just yelling at each other.
Yeah. And
So
what's actually interesting? Like, even when you said like the more efficient proliferation of news and money and information, I think we actually saw this. I'm gonna have to fact check this on the call right now, but I'm pretty sure like you know regular equities markets, these are generally only open like 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday, right? But now I think might have been NASDAQ and DeFi is always open, right? Um, and that's obviously better, right? Like why would the markets just close on Sunday? Like that doesn't make sense. I'm in my house over here. You're in your house. On Sunday, I can definitely go over to your place and we can trade currencies, right? Like we all, so why should Wall Street tell us we can't just because they don't want to come into work on Sunday? Now I think like NASDAQ or one of these just did weekend trading or like hang on, let's see. Someone
See, this is the kind of high quality stuff that we do on this show is we fact check ourselves live.
I'm pretty sure like okay, stock trading market expands through the weekend. Like I we'll have to like show note this or something after. I'm gonna have to find this. It's not popping right up. And I could be making it up or dreaming that, but like I'm almost positive that happened. And that's one example, right?
There you go.
So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense in a digital age where at some point, like I said, there's people all standing in a room yelling at each other, and like they get tired of that. And on Sunday, they're like, I don't want to yell at that guy to buy the pigs anymore, and so they take Sunday off. But now it's actually rarely humans are doing much of that interaction. Like so much of it is. I suspect a ton of it is AI driven, and all that now. Anyway. So
probably.
they have infinite time and attention. So
yeah,
what's the point? Okay,
yeah.
Well, that was awesome. I really that. So you said it was a good question. Maybe the answer was great. Actually, whether it is the right analogy or not, it's a great analogy. I like that.
Thank you.
I like that a lot. And you could take that sort of line of argumentation in so many different directions.
Oh
and
yeah.
It is sort of arguably like the one that DeFi folks like to lean towards is like, it's out in the open. So even if people are messing around, at least you can see that they're messing around, right? Like in a traditional financial system, we have no idea. And the more I explain that to people, the more I think like, man, I cannot believe that we've gone this long with like being okay with backdoor deals and
right.
Like it's surprising that actually in a society that seems to value sort of transparency, that's gone.
Right. And
done things.
I think the with DeFi especially, a lot of people like to conflate benefits into a single benefit. So like to me, transparency of information and efficient markets is one value proposition. The democratization of decision making over these financial products is another value. Is another valuable thing. We didn't even really talk about that. And I'm this one might be actually a hot take, but I am not so sure that the ways that we've seen DeFi protocols on like the large part, I think there's a few really good examples of strong DAOs that have figured this out for themselves. But on the whole, democratizing decision making, maybe I don't know that that's going to like 24/7 markets is going to push a ton of pressure on Wall Street. Transparent information and investments, ton of pressure on Wall Street. Democratizing decision making, I don't know. To me, I don't know that Wall Street's going to get that much pressure. I think people in DeFi, at least from my experience with Glyph, people like to trust a few experts, and like the community of your users are not necessarily experts on the subject matter that they're voting on, and that actually becomes a big danger. And when we go back to like regulation, the idea of like, hey, in order for you to launch this token, the person or group of people that know the most about this project and all of its risks now have to relinquish control. This is a very backwards relationship.
Right. Yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
Hmm.
And I think checks and balances are really good. Um, you do not want, you don't want someone to run away with a thing, with power. But if I were in the shoes of regulators, I would be I would be putting a bigger onus on um, security, open sourcing things, um, and like I would actually regulate auditors maybe, and basically say
Okay.
like you must go through a series of like security things. Once you do this, you are now opted into, and those auditors should basically be able to say like, hey, this has control from this group, and you have to disclose that stuff, right?
Right.
Like, and so anyways, I think democratization of decision making for me is, I'm more bullish for DeFi on transparency and efficiency of information. I'll
Yeah.
put it that way.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, there are actually some like, I don't know, real world. Crypto is still real world, but there's some corollaries here as well. So speaking of democratization of like financial, systems and things. So like, Robinhood and there's some Canadian ones. These like apps have sort of proliferated where they've promised like you can basically invest more directly you can handle your own finances and you can pick ETFs and you can do all that like yourself and they kind of act as this like intermediary for you. And the promise was like of sort of democratization of your finances because you don't have to go through like financial planners and things like that anymore. And but what we're seeing actually, and it's in their advertisements for all these apps and stuff, is they've totally walked it back and said like, oh, you know what? Investing is actually like kind of hard. So we actually have like products that you can invest in that take away like all the tricky decision making that you have to do. And these are by far, according to a quick web search, they're becoming the more like popular modes for using these apps. Is like I'm just gonna invest in like this fund instead. And you're like, well, that's funny because that's basically what people want, like control, but then like not to have to make a ton of decisions. And that is an
Totally.
interesting balance, right? The best shopping experience I ever had in my life was where I went to a place with like a ton of, I was buying a suit. All these suits, there's so many suits. I walked in and one of the store people were like, what kind of suits do you like? And I was like, kind of, described what I thought was cool. And they're like, okay, you can buy this one, or this one. Three suits.
Boom.
There's like
Easy.
3,000 suits behind me, right? But they're like, for you, this one or this one or this one. Best shopping experience ever, right? Because I
Love
didn't have
that.
to evaluate all these options. Anyway,
That's such a good point. No, that literally nail on the head. And I do it myself. Like I feel even capable if I had time to like invest, but I don't. I like put it into various funds and let the experts do their job. And if they tell me, hey, I've done research on, and of course it comes down a lot to trust, right? So like which in a funny way is actually like what we try to do away with blockchain systems, but we end up coming back to it in a lot of ways. Um, but yeah, so I totally see your, like what you're saying is exactly what I'm saying. I actually think that people like trusting people. Like
yeah,
I
they
guess
do. Yeah,
I
for
actually,
sure.
yeah, like the experience of using a platform where I don't have to trust anyone. Hey, that sounds great, but actually, my psychologically speaking, I have a better time myself when I'm doing something with someone that I trust. Like, you know what I mean? If I can earn 10% in a trustless system or 10% from my best friend who I love and trust, I'd much rather do this with my best friend. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
But
So that is like,
the sweet spot, I think, becomes where you build like a trustless system, and then you just start layering on top of that trustful systems, and then you get the best of both worlds, right? Where you're like, well, suddenly like this relationship is breaking down, but like I've still got this like escape hatch always there for me.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. Right. That. Yeah. Exactly. You want to. Yeah. That's a great way to put it. And that's why I do like checks and balances. Like
Yeah, you said it right.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna trust you until I don't, but once I don't, then I have the ability to like revert this system back into its trustless nature. Um. Yeah. Okay. I think we're yeah we're getting somewhere here. Maybe we should be
Cool.
DAO people, but I don't know. I have some friends
I
who work
talked
on
with some
like
DAO people last week. We had someone, a couple of different perspectives. It's pretty cool, and like some projects actually do a good job of sort of like democratizing decision making. But you know what? They like almost all of them have structures, right? Like
oh
it's not
totally
just like everybody voting on all the things all the time,
exactly yeah
that's
no
just realistic, right?
100%.
Okay.
And I'm going to wrap this point up. I hope that I didn't, offend any DAO people. I do respect the experimentation in that realm as well. But yeah, you know how it is. You're a founder as well. Like working with coordinating, really like way more fun for I think at least for me to just be building shit. So, anyways, yeah, on
Yeah,
to the
and I
next.
mean, and sometimes you just have to have that sort of like vision and go for it. And I don't know. Anyway.
Totally.
All right. Well, okay, we've got like 15 minutes left, so let's dive into some glyph stuff. What should everybody leave? What do you like working on day to day? What are you doing with glyph right now?
Yeah. So right now we've launched or we've um, announced our token. We haven't launched it yet, and I guess a good time to talk about glyph tokens. I think for us, the way that we think about the glyph token is that it's actually and actually this is a good opportunity. So you talked about early on real versus stated reasons of things, right? And I think in the case of glyph we have a real reason to put out a token. So the real reason here is for a loyalty program for our users. There have been a ton of uh, like Glyph has done over $1 billion in volume now at this point, and has deployed probably over 18 million Filecoin to storage providers for various like storing data initiatives and all this sort of stuff, and it's created a lot of value for a lot of different people in the ecosystem. And those those loyalty members should who have been with the protocol the longest, the the thought there is that just like you would have with an airline mile program or Chipotle rewards, Glyph wants to have the same thing. And so we're still fleshing out the models here, but the idea is that basically many of the folks, pretty much every single person who's interacted with Glyph in some way through the DeFi protocol has earned loyalty rewards. And so generally what we're working on now is this like fleshing out this loyalty program where there are different sort of like status tiers, and there are new ways to earn loyalty points for working with Glyph, as well as launching the store. So what's really interesting for us is, and again, this is all still kind of like work in progress about these models. This won't be available right at the beginning of launch, but a lot of DeFi protocols, like we talked about earlier on this call, the product that they're marketing when they put a token out is a DAO. So by being a token holder, you join this DAO and you get to decide the future of this product. With Glyph, you will get to do that too. So that is the first use case that is coming out. But the thing that we're actively working on now is this concept of a benefits store where you can actually spend your points to get benefits within the protocol. And so generally it's pretty easy for us to look at both sides of the market that Glyph has made with liquidity providers. What do they want? They want some different types of insurance. They want higher returns. And what do the storage providers want? They want cheaper rates. They want lower collateral or like higher borrowing limits. And generally what we're going to do is we're going to basically use these benefits that have been given to the users for using Glyph to then allow them to burn those benefits in the store and get benefits that have to do with what I was just saying,
Hmm.
both for LPs and SPs in the network. And that to me is genuinely like without the like it doesn't have to be an ERC20 token, but like if you put me as the CTO of United Airline Miles and you said, hey, can you implement this miles program? Um, if you're asking me what technology fits that kind of use case really well, it is fungible tokens, right? So like I ignore the fact that Glyph is launching a token. Glyph is launching a loyalty rewards program with benefits, right? How
Hmm.
are we mechanically putting that into play?
Right.
We're using a token.
Right.
Um, and to me, it's a little bit different, right? But the token wouldn't even have to trade to be useful. That's the goal, right? Like now, I also think I hold a couple beliefs that United, for instance, airline miles, or credit card points or Chipotle points, if there were secondary markets for those things,
Yeah.
it would be really interesting,
Yeah.
right? Like, oh, I don't know. I geek out about a world where I can decide, do I want to hang on to my Chipotle points for a free bowl that I can get, in a couple weeks? Or do I want to sell them at like a 50-60% discount just to get the cash now? Like
Right.
there's some interesting like game theory things there. And Chipotle should benefit from that in some way, because the points become more fun. Like so to me, that's the goal of what we're trying to replicate. Like traditional style of these like loyalty reward programs, but mixing it with a new spin with what's possible in crypto.
Hmm. Yeah, that's very, very interesting. I mean, I wonder why that doesn't exist. I mean, it must be some sort of like regulatory reason or something why we
I
don't see
think.
these secondary markets for points.
Oh
Like, I'm
yeah,
not going
I'm
to travel
sure.
this year. I got a ton of flight points, and I'm not going to travel this year.
Right.
Yeah, why
Yeah.
wouldn't I sell those off?
I
I
don't
know you
know.
can do it as gifts and stuff, but I don't know. Anyway, huh.
Interesting. I'll look into the gift angle there. Yeah.
Anyway, okay, cool. So one of the examples you mentioned was like insurance. So in theory, like, you could actually sort of like be in the ecosystem for a long time, earn some loyalty points, and then use those for like discounts. So basically, I would end up burning that and like getting a discount on like my future borrowing or something like that. Is that the idea?
That's yeah, for SPs or the borrowers in the protocol, that would be like a product that you could buy at the store.
Yeah, yeah. Hmm.
Like cash back kind of for fee payments back to the protocol type thing.
Hmm. Okay, cool.
Yeah, yeah.
And where is the token launching?
On Filecoin.
I thought
Yeah,
that was going to be the answer, but
yeah,
I wanted to double check.
yeah,
Yeah, okay, cool. So another sort of like actual DeFi style protocol on Filecoin related to Glyph.
yeah,
Are there
yeah.
others? Like,
I think they're
are you
I
seeing?
think n- not at the like not in a way that is as I would say like I haven't like there are other ERC20s on Filecoin. I don't know how much they've been like pushed or like taken seriously. So
Right.
to me, this is not the first token that will launch on Filecoin, but the first like proper DeFi one.
Hmm.
Uh, you know,
And then are you going like I mean, I'm just asking you actual technical questions because I'm interested.
yeah. Let's go at it. Yeah.
Like, so if there is a secondary market for like the points, will you like are you gonna have liquidity on other chains, or is this a like come to like how do you anticipate that kind of like playing out?
Yeah. So this is basically the way that you can think about the whole program and the token model is that there are both things that mint this loyalty token into fruition, and that's kind of like what we call mints, and then there are products that are sold out of a store that are called burns, right? So you burn
Oh,
your
okay.
glyph tokens to get those products. So
Yeah.
um, generally when the tough to know exactly when time wise these will drop. But there will be a couple mints to get involved with the loyalty program by creating DEX liquidity on Filecoin for different
Mm,
pairs. So
cool.
so we'll tap back into the community to create
Yeah, nice.
the trading. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. That's a great idea, actually. Um, I,
Not one that we not an original glyph idea. Like I think you know I think sushi is probably the one, like the famous vampire attack on Uniswap, right? They launched their token and then they said, hey, anyone who makes a market on sushi is going to both get the LP fees for trading, but also get our sushi token. That
right.
was like I believe either that or like Compound, which was giving their token away for supplying assets to their protocol. These are like the two first versions that I can think of what we call liquidity mining, where
Mm,
you mint
yeah.
a token and folks mine it by providing liquidity.
Yeah. Interesting. Cool. All right. We got like 5 minutes left.
Oh
What do
yeah.
we need to what do we want to leave the both of the listeners that are listening to us right now with before we sign off? What do you think?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think especially with all the different really interesting stuff that you've worked on throughout the years. I think, and for us as well, we both stand to benefit in a world where the audience of crypto is a bit more educated on real things happening, right? So I think one takeaway is hey, enjoy it while you have it. If you even enjoy it, right? The speculative markets, especially speculative bull markets, really they're not great for my mental personally. Like I'm way happier in a bear market, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, this makes sense to me. Like yeah. Um, now so I think enjoy it while it lasts, but know that like at some point the music will stop and it may incur max pain in the short term, but like you said, I think long term, as long as that max pain is caused by sane like rules of the game, then we're headed in the right direction. And for me, that's really promising. So it's kind of like one step back, three steps forward. Um,
Right.
that's one thing. Second is of course shilling glyph. If you have Filecoin or you need Filecoin, you can hit me up personally or like hop in our Discord, follow us on Twitter at glyph.io, and keep stay tuned for more token related announcements. And yeah, what about you? What are your takeaways?
Yeah, I mean, I think I still have this I still have this optimism around meme coins as being like I was like NFTs in the early days where it was like the lowest hanging fruit is the thing that really took off, and that was like JPEGs and things like that. And we're in that same phase right now with meme coins where it's like, fart, ha ha ha, like basically joke, literally jokes and memes. But I still think of this. There's a possible world in which like people actually come together to fund a like social or product or like physical thing because they care about that thing, whether it's like you know I don't know, cancer research or like scientific breakthroughs or like AI development. Like people can come together and basically like use this sort of meme coin framework, the ability that it's really easy to launch a coin to just like actually fund good things in the world and to bring good things into the world. I still have that, and I think we'll get there, right? Like, I don't know, it's sort of like a GoFundMe exists and it kind of works, and it's sort of unfortunate maybe that it needs to exist, but like there's this optimism in me of just like, yeah, actually we can take all these crazy like DeFi protocols and we can just provide ways where people who care about a thing can work together to make that thing come to life.
Oh,
Um,
I love that. Yeah. No, and don't get me wrong, like I think memetics are real. right? Like
Yeah,
that, there's no
sure.
arguing that memes are really powerful. And we did see an example of this. I mean, I haven't followed the D size stuff too closely, or that like Mira meme token launch. Did you see that one?
No,
Uh,
no.
this guy launched a,
Oh yeah,
uh,
right.
yeah,
Yes,
and
I do know
he
what you're
made
talking about.
like now he has like money for cancer research. So like um, those are great things, and I completely agree. I think like there's still a long way to go between that type of meme coin crowdfunding a meme that then converts that into something like really fundamental versus like um, let's play this game because I actually like I think the differentiator for me is meme coins that intend to become positive sum games end up really being good, right? And like what you're talking about are positive sum games. Meme coins that have no intention of converting into a positive sum game and staying zero sum um, necessarily mean people lose money.
Right.
And so to me, that is we could do less of that and more of the what you're talking about. And yeah, like hopefully there are some elements of the good memetics that stay around.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I hope we figure ourselves out when we get there. Eventually. There we go. Positive sum games is where we're headed.
Positive sum game, positive ending. Carson, thanks so much for your time and the invite.
Yeah. Cheers. Thanks for the chat. Hopefully we'll do it again in the future. Thanks everybody for listening, as always, and join us for the next one. Thanks, John.